Hi there, my name is Obed, and today we want to talk about the integral components of a computer system. Anytime we talk about a system, remember we are normally talking about or referring to several components working together in order to accomplish something. So that is why we have, for instance, the digestive system. So the digestive system doesn't only comprise of a single part of the body. It's several parts of the body working together to accomplish digestion. Anytime we talk about the solar system, we are not normally talking about a single planetary body. We are basically talking about all the planetary bodies that together make up the solar system. So when you hear about a computer system, it doesn't refer to a single component. It doesn't only refer to the monitor or just the mouse, but all the components that work together in order to accomplish what a computer accomplishes. So that is why when you're operating a computer, they start whole system that manages the whole process. That is, we have software, we have the hardware, we talked about those things, and we have the liveware. Liveware is now you, because without you, again, we can't say that we have a complete system. But now I want to emphasize, or I want to talk about the hardware components of a computer system. And the first component that we have is the smallest component, and that is the mouse. The mouse. And you know why it was called a mouse? Because it actually looks like a mouse. You can see on the picture, it looks like a mouse. That is one of the reasons why they decided to call it a mouse. So the mouse is a handheld device, and we all know that. And it is normally used for selecting commands on the computer screen. It's normally used for selecting programs that you want to open, for clicking on various controls on the screen, just like you can see from what I'm showing you. And the mouse comes in different types. For example, if you're using a laptop, probably you have a different pointing device and you don't call it a mouse, or a different pointing component. These are technologies that work exactly the way the mouse works, but they're slightly different. Because on a laptop, we have a touchpad. Why do we call it a touchpad? Because it's a pad that you touch. Anytime you touch that pad, it moves the pointer on the screen. You tap the pad, it selects the command that you wanted to click on. So that is why it exactly works like the mouse. And then from there, when you're playing games, probably you won't use a mouse. We have some specialized devices normally used for playing games. For example, we have a joystick. So you don't go to a PlayStation and you find mice on the desk, you find joysticks. But they work exactly the way the mouse would have worked, but they have specialized buttons for navigating better through the game. Then from there, another pointing technology we have is the touch screen. So your mobile phone doesn't have a touchpad, it doesn't have a mouse, but instead it's a touch screen. It allows you to directly select controls on the screen using the touch screen. All those are pointing or selection technologies. And then from there, other laptops, you find them having a small rubber, red or maybe blue rubber between keys on the keyboard. You find it. You find a track point somewhere in between the keyboard. We call that small rubber a track point. It allows you to also move the pointer on the screen instead of using a touchpad. You can see that from my illustration. And then from there, we have, sometimes we use a stylus pen, and mostly we normally use a stylus pen either on a graphic tablet or maybe directly on the screen. All those are methods of pointing. So don't look at your phone and you're like, why doesn't it have a mouse and it's still working? I'm able to select commands here and there. It has a different pointing technology. So let's talk about the types of mice that we have. The types of mice that we have. Let me start, number one, with a scroll mouse. A scroll mouse is an old mouse that had a scrolling ball at the bottom. So whenever you drag the ball on the desk, the movement of that ball was tracked with some system that moved the pointer on the screen. but it has issues because that ball could get physically dirty. It could collect dirt from the desk, oil and other things, and then become inefficient. And that is why the next type of mouse that we have that is the most common, the most popular, very modern mouse is an optical mouse. An optical mouse uses optical technology or light technology to move the pointer on the screen. And then the last type of mouse, also quite old, is the trackball mouse. You can see from the picture, that is how a trackball mouse looks like. The mouse has 3 buttons. It has the left button, which is the primary button. It has the right button, which is the secondary button. And then it has a wheel that we call the scroll button. The scroll button. So we'll talk about the functions of the left button of your mouse. What are the functions of the left button? The left button is what we normally use to select whatever we want. It's normally used for selecting. It's normally used for dragging and dropping. But make sure that you keep following, because during the next package, I'll teach you how you work with the mouse on a Microsoft Windows operating system environment. I'll teach you when to left click, when to right click, when to scroll, how you do it. I'll show you all those things such that you will be able to work with the mouse or even a touchpad as per se. So then the right button of the mouse is actually a context button, normally opens context menus. We'll talk about that later. And then the last button, the scroll button, is normally used when you want to scroll on the screen. It's normally used for scrolling. We'll talk about that, not in the next lesson, but in the next package. We are still in Introduction to Computers, where it's just a lot of theory, just trying to make sure that you understand these things before we start working with them. The next component that I want to talk about, the next component, that is component number 2. We want to talk about the keyboard. The keyboard. You can see the keyboard on the screen. That is what we call a keyboard. It's basically a board with keys that allows you to type or enter instructions by pressing keys. The keyboard, it has very many buttons, probably over 100 buttons. And they have got different functions. But the buttons on the keyboard are only categorized into 3 categories. We have alphanumeric keys, that is alphabets and numerals. Yeah. We have function keys, that is we have from function 1 up to function 12. And then from there, we have special keys. These are keys that probably when you press them, they don't type anything. Sometimes you combine them with other keys to perform some special functions. I'll be able to teach you that during the next package that we call typing and keyboarding. I'll give you the details. I'll even explain each and every key on the keyboard and what it is supposed to do. We have 2 types of keyboards, common types of keyboards. We have QWERTY keyboard and we have Dvorak keyboards. Let's start with QWERTY keyboards. The QWERTY keyboard is called QWERTY because the arrangement of keys are the keys on that keyboard are arranged in such a way that they form the word QWERTY first. That is, the first key that you have on that keyboard is Q, then we have W, then we have E, then we have R and T and Y, forming the word QWERTY. So that is why we call them QWERTY keyboards. It's the most common type of keyboard that you will find almost everywhere, even on your phone, even on the phone that you're using. The arrangement of the typing buttons, they are normally arranged in QWERTY format because it has been adopted. It has a long history. It has been adopted from the arrangement of keys on a typewriter. That arrangement prevented the keys from jamming. And that was adopted to the computer keyboards. And now it's everywhere, even on the phone's keyboard, you still find the arrangement is QWERTY. And then from there, we have the next type of keyboard, and it's called Dvorak keyboard. So Dvorak keyboard was actually an invention of a person we call August Dvorak around 1930s. And they say that it's the most ergonomic keyboard, but that's something we can argue about. Because it has arranged the keys in such a way that the most common English letters Like for example, we have A, O, E, U, I. They have been put on the home row so that when you're typing, you don't move your fingers around the keyboard a lot. So that reduces straining your fingers, and it also makes typing fast and efficient. But it's not common because it was overtaken by the QWERTY keyboard, which was actually the most popular by then. You know, it has been used with typewriters and all that. So now it was widely adopted and accepted. Now changing and people have to start retraining using a Dvorak keyboard was a bit some challenge because the QWERTY keyboard was far much popular. So that is why these ergonomic keyboards like the Dvorak keyboard isn't very popular, but it is still there, and you can find it on the market. The next component we want to talk about the monitor or the screen. The monitor or the screen being the third component, integral component of a computer. So it's called a monitor. Why? Because it allows you to monitor what is happening on your computer. So remember, your computer can still work without the monitor. But now the liveware with you won't be able to see or monitor what is happening. You won't be able to interact with your computer. So that is why you need the monitor. So we have two types of monitors. We have flat panel monitors and we have the old CRT monitors. On the flat panel monitors, the common types of monitors we have LCD monitors. LCD standing for liquid crystal display. And then we have OLED monitors. Yeah, standing for organic light emitting diodes. That's basically a technology. We can talk about that another day, but that's another type of monitor. So I'll display them on the screen so that you can see them as we move forward. So the reason why the CRT monitors got outdated, number one, it's because of the bulkiness. These are very bulky monitors, very heavy monitors, consuming a lot of power. They also emit higher radiation. So that is why they got outmoded with technology. And then the next component that we want to talk about is the system unit, SU. Some people call it the CPU. It's not the CPU, but it's the system unit. Inside the system unit, we have the CPU and other components. So the system unit is the main case of a computer that houses critical internal components of your computer. For example, the motherboard is inside there. You can see what a motherboard is. We have the main memory, RAM, inside it. We have got the hard drive. And then from there, we have the GPU, graphical processing unit, either integrated or dedicated, still inside there. We have got disk drives, like for example, we have got a CD drive. So you find all of them inside the system unit. So the quality of a good computer is actually based on the features and the specification of the system unit. A good system unit is based on these things that I'll mention. Number one is RAM, the amount of memory that is installed inside the system unit of that computer. Number two, the storage type and capacity. Some computers use HDD and others use SSD. Then from there, we have the CPU speed and the cost. You'll hear a computer using a CPU called Core i5, Core i3, Core i7. Yeah, that's the type. And then from there, we have the clock speed that we'll talk about that later. That is, you'll hear a CPU having a clock speed of something like 3.0 GHz. So I'll talk about that when we get into the topic of the central processing unit. And then from there, the next thing we normally check is the graphics capability, because we have got computers with integrated graphics card. That is the most common. And we have computers with dedicated graphics card. They tend to be a bit more expensive and powerful when it comes to working with things that require a high graphic processing system. So that is that for today. And it was very interesting to understand about the types or the components of a computer system in terms of the hardware specification, or in terms of the hardware line. So I believe that was interesting. In case you have any question, make sure that you post it on the comment section. And in case you like my videos, make sure that you give me a thumbs up and make sure that you subscribe so that you can continue following on these tutorials. So thank you so much. I was your teacher Obed. See you during the next lesson that will be talking about the computer peripheral devices. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Obex online iko tayari kwa simu yako ama kompyuta, ka nyumbani au kwa cyber. Tunasema elimu sio barrier.